Welcome everyone to our Get Into Teaching information session. My name is Emma Johnston and I am the Senior Selection Officer for the PGDE programme, and I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleague Debbie McLeod, who is the PGDE programme leader and the PGDE secondary biology subject leader as well. So the programme for today, I'm just going to do a quick overview of where you can find out all the information you need to apply for the PGDE programme, subjects available, entry requirements, and then how to apply. And then I'm going to hand over to Debbie, who's going to give you an overview of the programme. And then we'll hopefully have time at the end for any questions you may still have for us. You'll have a chat box at the bottom of your screen. So if you can hold on to any questions until the presentations are over, that would be great. Hopefully they'll all be answered within the presentation, but if you've got any follow-up questions, you can pop them into the chat box once the presentations are over. Okay, so the information hub we have created, we have mapped out the process for what you need to do before you apply for the PGDE programme. So there's information there about how to prepare your application. It gives you a bit of information about course overview, your placement, the subjects we have available, their student profiles, and there's a really good FAQ section. So again, if there's any questions at the end of this, that section there will hopefully be able to answer any of your questions that you may have. I'll put the link for the information hub into the chat box once I'm finished here, but if you just go to the main Strathclyde webpage and just type in PGDE, that should take you to this page. So if you haven't already been on to have a read through it, then I strongly recommend that you go through and have a read through the information that is available to you. Even if you've applied or even if you've got an offer of a place already, it's worth going in and having a read through the information that's available to you. So the subjects we have available, so we offer a wide range of specialisms here at Strathclyde. You'll notice that history and PE, we are now currently closed for home applicants. However, we are still accepting applications for the rest of UK and international students. Languages, we can only accept Italian and German as a dual qualification. We have limited places available for single Spanish. However, French, dual and single, we can accept as unlimited. Primary, we are still open at the moment, but we do anticipate closing in the next couple of weeks. So if you are still interested in for this year, then I would recommend you get an application into us as soon as you can. Psychology, again, we can only accept as a dual subject, so you would need a secondary subject to be eligible for psychology. However, all this information is on the website as well. We also have a number of subjects available in the medium of Gaelic, and we offer a part-time route which is available for secondary subjects only, with the exception of PE and for technological education. But if you are planning on going down the part-time route, then just be aware that the teaching element is part-time. However, your placements will be full-time. So you will be full-time attendance on your placements. That's Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So just be aware of that if you are planning on going down the part-time route. So the entry requirements for the PGDE are based on the requirements that are set by the General Teaching Council for Scotland, the GTCS. We require degree for entry. However, for all the subjects, applicants must have your undergraduate degree, SCQF level 6 in English at grade C or above, and SCQF level 5 mathematics at grade C or above. We do accept alternative qualifications for both the English and maths, and we've got a list of those alternatives under the FAQ section in the information hub. We also require you to have evidence that you have experience of working with children in a primary or secondary setting, an understanding of the modern education system, and to be able to demonstrate appropriate interpersonal skills, attributes, and dispositions, which will allow you to engage with young people, colleagues, partners in an effective collaboration. And again, that comes back to your personal statement, providing us with that evidence. And then if successful at interview, again, you'll be able to delve a bit more deeper into those requirements. So how to prepare your application. So if you're a home student or rest of UK applicant, then you can apply through UCAS. If you're international, if you're planning on applying to several different institutions, then you can also apply through UCAS. However, if you only want to apply to Strathclyde, you can apply directly to us through our Pegasus portal. And again, all the links are available on the Information Hub under the subjects. We do have a how to apply for the PGDE video. So again, if you want some more advice and guidance on how to submit your application, then that's available in the Information Hub. Again, check the entry requirements just to make sure that you do meet those requirements before you submit your application. Include all your academic qualifications on your application. Failure to do so can result in your application being held up or possibly rejected as you've not provided that information. Your personal statement. So this is your opportunity to tell us why you think you're suitable to a career in teaching, what experience that you've undertaken, reflection on that experience. There is a session tomorrow as part of the postgraduate virtual week talking about how to write a good personal statement. So if you've got an opportunity to go along to that tomorrow, there'll be further guidance and advice on how to do that. We also require a reference. Now, this must be from either an academic or a professional. If you've written your personal statement, it might be worth showing your referee your personal statement so they have a better understanding of why you want to apply for the PGDE programme, and then they'll be able to tailor their reference to your personal statement and have a better understanding to support your application. And then remember to submit your application to ourselves. The deadline was the 29th of January. However, we are still open for the majority of our secondary and primary subjects, with the exception of history and PE, which I've mentioned previously. Once you've submitted your application, you'll receive an email from ourselves asking you to upload your qualifications for us to review. Then if you're successful at that stage, you'll then be invited to interview. Interviews take place either online or in person, depending on the subject you have applied for. Once the interview has been completed, you will then receive a decision either through UCAS Track or Pegasus. We try to make a decision as quickly as we possibly can. However, for those subjects that have got high demand, it may not be possible to make a decision at that point, but we will try and get a decision recorded and sent out to you as soon as we possibly can after interview. So at interview, this is just a little bit more information of what we look for and what the GTCS look for. So all this information is already on the GTCS website. So again, if you've not been on their website yet, then I would strongly recommend you go through and you look through what it is that they are looking for. So applicants aspiring to be a teacher need to show that you are committed to the professional values of social justice, integrity and trust, can understand what it means to be a trusted teacher and have a willingness to engage with the code of professionalism and conduct, are self-directed and resilient, are interested in developing an understanding and awareness of the current context of education in Scotland, and are capable of meeting the standard for provisional registration, which specifies what is expected of a student teacher. So Debbie will go in a wee bit more detail about the provisional, the differences between the provisional and registration in her presentation as well. But all that information is on the GTCS website. The fees and funding. So Scottish students, you can apply to have the cost of your tuition fees paid for by the Student Awards Agency Scotland, SAS. If you're applying, just be aware that the PGDE course falls under undergraduate study. There's also, for full-time students who usually live in Scotland, you may be eligible for a loan or a bursary as well. Again, all the information is on the SAS website, so please go on there to find out more information about the funding. If you're an international student, to celebrate the 850th anniversary of the City of Glasgow, we're delighted to offer a scholarship to all eligible applicants who are paying international fees and are coming onto a full-time course in August. This award's worth up to £5,000 and it's an automatic award on the basis of you meeting your academic conditions and paying your deposit as well, and it will be automatically added to your record. EU Engagement Scholarship as well. Similarly, it's an automatic award for those of you who are EU student applicants who previously were eligible for home fee status, but because of Brexit, you're now classified as international fee-paying students. The award's worth up to £5,000 again, and that's based on you meeting your academic conditions of offer and paying your deposit. Just want to highlight as well on the Information Hub, we've got a number of student profiles as well. So if you want to get a bit more of an idea of what it's like being a student on the course, they give really good guidance and advice on how they coped on the course, what they're up to now. Just to draw your attention to Gemma at the end there. So Gemma did the PGDE business with ourselves. She did her probationary year in Scotland, and she's now out teaching in Dubai as well. So it's just to show alternative routes once you do your probationary year, if you fancy going abroad to teach as well. It is an internationally recognised qualification. Just make sure you check with the country that you want to go and teach in. And yeah, the world is open to you to take your PGDE qualification out there. So finally, if you've got any further questions after this event, as I say, the FAQ section on our website is quite comprehensive, so if you can have a look through there. You can contact our team. So we have a dedicated team that look after all our PGDE applications. There's a form that you can complete, and that comes directly into our team. Our phone number again is there on the website. You can give our team a call. You can email us at studywithus-has@strath.ac.uk. If you're secondary subject and you're not quite sure if you meet the entry requirements, you can send us a copy of your academic transcript and we can have a review of that and give you any guidance and advice on your eligibility. And then just a few links as well that I would recommend you go through and have a look. So the GTCS website, lots of resources for you on there. Education Scotland, the SQA, which is the Scottish Qualification Authority, and of course UCAS as well. UCAS have some good guidance and advice as well on how to write your personal statement and information about how to pick your referee as well. So if you haven't already done so, please go on and have a read through those. So I'm going to stop sharing just now, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Debbie, who's just going to give you an overview of the PGDE programme.
Thank you, Emma. Let's see if we can share screen. Can you see those slides okay, Emma?
Yep, that's perfect.
Perfect, thank you very much. So welcome and good afternoon to all those on the call. As Emma said, my name is Debbie McLeod and I am the PGDE Primary and Secondary Leader and Course Leader and also the Assessment Coordinator. My other role is the Biology Teaching Fellow, so I'm responsible for recruitment into PGDE Biology as well. So, as the course leader, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the course and give you an insight into what you can expect if you join us here at the University of Strathclyde. As Emma mentioned earlier, there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation, and if I could ask you to hold those questions, and Emma and I will look into the chat once I've finished. So if you notice on screen, the first screen here talks about the course, and the course is titled the Professional Graduate, not the Postgrad Diploma in Education. Most people who are involved in education talk about it being the postgrad course, but it's the Professional Graduate Diploma in Education. And you'll see on screen there, mention as Emma did, also the GTCS, so the General Teaching Council for Scotland. And the GTCS is the regulatory body who ensures that teachers who qualify in Scotland are of a high standard. As the qualification is recognised across the world, and Emma showed you some of our former students and their destination, you can see that the qualification is a bit of a passport where Strathclyders are recognised as teachers of a high standard of professional knowledge, but also have the skills and attributes necessary to be effective practitioners. So we work very closely with the GTCS in terms of the requirements of new teachers. And I'll mention as I go through my slides about the standard for provisional registration. And that's something Emma's mentioned already today. So why choose Strathclyde? Well, the first reason is that we've been doing this for a long time. We are the oldest PGD provider, going back to when David Stowe, who you can see in the lovely picture on screen just now, he was an educational pioneer and he established the first, what used to be referenced as the Teacher Training School in 1836. So you'll be joining a rich tapestry of teacher education as a University of Strathclyde student. And you can see that we're the leading provider of teacher education in Scotland, and our courses are highly valued by our students. At the bottom of the screen there, you can see that we offer alternative routes into teaching. And if you're interested in the alternative routes into teaching through the BSc Education and Curricular Studies programme, and that's available to secondary practitioners in home economics or technological education, then if you want to know more about that, you may have a question at the end, or you can find more on our website. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the course runs. So please note that in order to have the appropriate on-campus input before school experience, our course begins with induction days mid-August. And this year, the course will start on the 20th of August. Now, these are essential information sessions to allow students to receive all the preparatory information to begin the course proper. So semester 1 runs from August to October, and that's on campus. And then from October to December, our PGDE students embark on their first placement. Semester 2 runs from January to February on campus, and then from February to May, where there are 2 placements split by the spring break. Notice at the bottom of the slide, we don't have a closing ceremony, we have a closing ceremony rather than a graduation. And that's because this is a diploma rather than a degree qualification. So there's no formal graduation, but we do have a closing ceremony to celebrate all of the successes of our students. And that usually takes place in the lovely Royal Concert Hall in Glasgow. So it's a really good, fun event. So let's talk a little bit about the aim of the PGDE, and you've heard me mention already about the standard for provisional registration. So the aim of the course is to meet that standard, and that's a standard set by the General Teaching Council for Scotland. And the SPR, as we know it, set by the GTC, those are the demands that all initial teacher education, or ITE as they're called, these are the demands that are met by our students before they embark on their induction year. And the induction year is the first year of teaching, where teachers then work towards the SFR, which is the standard for full registration. So let me tell you a little bit about our course. So what will you be studying and what will the modules look like? So you can see the 3 cogs on screen. So the first cog is our blue cog, and that represents our first module, Educational Studies Professional Values, and that's a 20 credit module. You'll see the green cog, our Professional Learning Through Inquiry module, and in that module, you're achieving 20 credits. Our last module, Professional Skills, is split into 2 40 credit modules, Curriculum and Pedagogy and Professional Practice, and together they represent 80 credits. So you'll see, to be successful in PGDE, you must achieve 120 credits. So you must achieve all credits in all modules. And in the next few screens, I'm going to take you through each of those modules and what you might expect to study in each of the modules through the PGDE. So let's look first at our first 20 credit module, Educational Studies Professional Values, or ESPV as we call it for short. So as I mentioned earlier, our programme is teacher education rather than teacher training, and we want you to be thinkers, future policy makers. So in ESPV, we want you to dismantle your thinking. We encourage you to engage with policy, to read, to debate, and then to reassemble your thinking. Now, you may end up at the end of the ESPV module with the same opinions, or it may be that these change as you begin to think more like a teacher. But you can see some of the big topics on screen that are covered in the ESPV module. Now, after ESPV, you move into our second module, Professional Learning Through Inquiry, or PLTE as we call it, and it's another 20 credit module. So part of the SPR, the Standard for Provisional Registration, asks teachers to be inquiring practitioners. And the PLTE module aims to develop students as inquiring, self-reflective practitioners who are able to work collaboratively to develop skills, knowledge and expertise in an area of professional practice. And this area of professional practice will be something that will benefit children and young people throughout Scotland and beyond. So the focus of this module will be on practitioner inquiry, professional learning. This module provides a space where students can connect theory and literature that they've initially explored in the first module, ESPV, and then we'll show you how to design a practitioner inquiry, as this is a requirement of all new teachers as part of the SFR, the that I mentioned earlier. All through the programme, from the beginning right through your 18 weeks on campus and 18 weeks out in placement, ESPV and PLTE, you'll be in classes with groups of both primary and secondary students. But as you embark on our next module, Curriculum and Pedagogy, one of our 40 credit modules, if you're a PGDE primary student, you will cover all areas of the curriculum with your primary peers and your tutors. We'll not necessarily be teaching the curriculum, but instead we'll be teaching you how to plan, deliver, and evaluate fun, active and engaging lessons. In secondary PGDE, you'll be covering curriculum and pedagogy, but that will be within your subject-specific area. So for example, I'm the biology teaching fellow and I work closely with the biology students. And again, you'll not be learning your subject content, but more how to teach it. The other part of our 40 credits of our 80 credit full module is professional practice, or PP as we call it. And in this, you will follow either a primary or secondary programme, but there is of course overlap in topics such as child protection, promoting positive behaviour and relationships, supporting pupils' needs, learning for sustainability, and preparation for placement. This module allows you to consider the professional skills required for placement, and then in professional practice in schools, you are able to put these into practice. And I'll talk more about that in a few slides' time. So placement. So placement, generally speaking, in PGDE, you'll have 3 placements. So they're slightly different. These placements take 18 weeks of your study. So for primary, lower stage P2 to P4 is your first placement. And before Christmas, you have the opportunity to work with either a primary 1 or an early level centre. So nurseries, as we used to refer to them. And then after the Christmas holidays and moving into your second placement, you'll be working with a different stage and you'll be working with P5 to P7 children. And this second placement is linked across the spring break. In secondary, you'll be working with your first school for the October to December placement, and then you'll move into a second school. And in that second school, you'll be working with children for BGE right through to the national curriculum for your subject. And then you return to that same second school after the spring break. So a question that's often asked at this stage before people apply is, where will placements be? Maybe you're very fortunate, you can look out of your living room or your bedroom window and there's school right on your doorstep, or it may be that you're in an area that's a bit more remote and you would have to travel a bit further. Well, the bad news is that if you have a school at your front door, that's not necessarily the school that you would be allocated for placement, because we have a rule, and there's rules that we apply across all the ITEs, the initial teacher education in Scotland. So the first thing to mention is that we have the university don't allocate the school placements. This is done by the national system, and the national system, as I say, applies to all ITE providers. It's worth noting at this point that students are not permitted either to arrange their own placement or to cold call schools. So we have a 90-minute rule, which can be seen on the screen. It's worth bearing in mind that the application of the 90-minute rule is consistent and equitable across all students. So bear in mind that you're not able to arrange your own placements. We look for you to give us your postcode that you would prefer to use as your term time address, and then we look to trying to allocate placement within the 90 minutes. And again, it very much depends where you live, the opportunity of schools around your area. So where will your placement be in terms of school exclusion? And it may be already that you're thinking there are particular schools that it wouldn't be appropriate for you to go in and to do any of your professional placement in these schools. You'll be asked at the beginning of the course if there are any schools in that category, but it's worth noting that school exclusions would include the school with which your children or you have connections, your children or pupils there, or a relative is there, but a school exclusion would not be the old school that you attended. And often it's actually quite good fun to go back to your old school and to experience that from the other side of the desk as a teacher. So the assessment. So we have different modes of assessment throughout the PGDE programme. And for placement, you'll see on screen, there's a variety of different assessments that are made in partnership with schools. So when you're out on professional placement, you're left with a period of time to get to know the school, get to know the pupils, get to deliver some lessons, evaluate those lessons, consider sharing good practice. And then the tutor team, a member of the tutor team, primary for primary tutors and primary students, or a secondary tutor for the secondary students, would come out and observe your practice in school. You'll see that part of the placement experience assessment is also a requirement of attendance, and attendance is also a requirement on campus. The attendance thresholds are set by the GTC, and that's something we will explain to you when you come onto the programme. There's also the requirement of placement experience of the planning file. So the planning file is a professional practice file, and it's maintained using OneNote digitally. For the other modules, we have a variety of different types of assessment. For ESPB, it's a written assessment, an old style essay. For PLT, it's a poster, a plan for practitioner inquiry. And for curriculum and pedagogy, C&P, it's a presentation with supporting notes. So that is the conclusion of my presentation in terms of the course, the various aspects of the course. And I think, Emma, at this point now, we're going to open for questions. So I can see some questions coming through the chat, Emma, in the Q&A when you were speaking, but I think you've maybe answered all of those, which is great.
I think so. I'm just going to pop a couple of, sorry, I've just realised the sun's coming in.
No problems.
I'm going to put just a couple of links into the chat box. One to the rest of the events that are taking place over the next week that may be relevant to people on this call. So the personal statement session is tomorrow. There's also a student panel taking place on Thursday as well. There won't be any PGDE students on there, but there will be other postgraduate students, and they would just be talking about what life is like at Strathclyde. So again, it might be worth you going along to that if you can register and attend that as well. It might be worth your while. I'll put the link also for our PGDE hub with the subjects in it as well. And just quickly, another link. For any international students out there, just the link to the website with information about the international scholarship is there as well.
Right, so we've got a question about placement, Emma, from Manel. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So the question is to ask a little bit more about placement. Do we just jump right into teaching, or do we start with a class? So yeah, let me explain how placement works. So you have a number of periods across the course where you're on campus. So you're on campus with us from August in the induction right through until October. And it's quite, because you've only got a period of time with us of in total 36 weeks, it's quite front loaded, but there's quite a lot of information, but we get you ready for teaching. But when you go into placement, you don't start teaching from day one, period one, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. We have a timetable across a 5 or 6 week placement. And in that timetable, you are asked to have particular placement requirements. So for example, in the first week of each of the new placements in your new school, you would have a week of observation. So you'll be working just primarily with the class teachers, in primary, working with the class you're going to be working with, in secondary, working with the range of classes you're going to be working with, and then you would be observing good practice. So in that good practice, you'd be getting to know the pupils you're about to work with, some of the background, some of their individual needs. You'd be watching the class teacher to see, right, what works for this class, what's the routines of the class, the routines that I can pick up and follow, where are they in the curriculum, what's the sort of strategies used in terms of pedagogy, is it active learning, do they do some peer tasks, do they do some solo tasks? So you'll be learning a lot about the school, you'll be learning a lot about the class or classes that you're working with, and then after that, there's a timetable of requirements. So in the first few weeks, you're required to take maybe 8 or 9 periods if you're looking at secondary, or 3 or 4 classes if you're looking at primary. Okay, and then that happens for a couple of weeks, and then we start to build upon that. So you're developing your confidence, you're developing your skill, you're developing knowledge of the curriculum, you're developing knowledge of your school, you're developing knowledge of the children you're working with. So it's a gradual process. So the good news is you're not just fired in on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock and expected to take a full timetable or to take a full week's worth of classes in primary school. So I hope that helps to clarify and say maybe settle some nerves around that. Okay. Let's see. So SAS applicable. Oh, it's moving. Sorry, this is what happens.
Sorry.
It is okay. It's okay. So Katie's saying, Emma, if I've already applied, when might we hear if we're successful or not? Katie, Emma mentioned that in her presentation. It depends on the volume of applications, the number of applications at the moment. Our tutor team, including myself, are still very much involved in interviews and offers and processing offers. So it's difficult to put a date or a timeline on that. And it very much depends who you're applying for, if it's primary or secondary, or even in secondary, which subject you're applying for. But I would imagine that if you've been interviewed, that it shouldn't be too long now before you hear from the recruitment team. Okay.
I think there's another question there from Olivia as well that's just
Yes.
asking about modern studies.
Yes.
So the likes of modern studies and history is one of our most popular subjects. So we get a large volume of applications for very limited places. So interviews are they're still ongoing. But Olivia, I will check with my colleague to give you an update on your application there as well. But interviews for modern studies are still ongoing. As Debbie said, it's the subject leaders that are doing the interviews for our secondary subjects. So and they're out on their observation just now. So it's just getting that availability to get the interviews done. But we do expect some more modern studies interviews to be taking place in the next few weeks. But I've taken a note of your name, so I'll get my colleague to do a wee follow-up email with you as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Emma. Joe, you've got a question. You've applied for modern studies and you're thinking about the dual qualification with history. And you're saying you have the correct number, the 80 credits that are required then. That's something that we can check with our admin team as well in terms of credits. You do not have to be brought onto the course in 2 subjects. You would be brought in a first subject. So your first subject in this situation would be modern studies. And then once you're on the programme in our induction sessions, one of the sessions is on dual qualification. So you would have the opportunity to hear about how you would go about that and see if there is the option to do that with us at the University of Strathclyde. So that's something you can hear more about. So you don't have to have applied into both. You can still think about that and consider that when you hear all information. It depends on the size of the classes, if there's availability to do the dual. It depends on when the timetable classes are scheduled. So there's considerations to think about, but you can hear all about that if you come onto the programme in the induction sessions. Does the university help with securing a place in a school for probation year after PGDE? Well, Lucy, if you are entitled to the teacher induction scheme, and anyone on the call can look at the teacher induction scheme through the GTC website to see if they're if that's applicable or not. And that really is about your route into teaching. If you are eligible for teacher induction, then the GTC secure a school for you. It's not the university that would do that. So halfway through the process in PGDE, we support you and mentor you through communications with the GTC. And what you do around about January, February, is you commit to which local authorities you would like to work in, not which schools, but which local authorities. And then the GTC take all of that information from all the ITE institutes in Scotland, and then they allocate the teacher induction scheme places. So the GTC would allocate that for you, Lucy. Okay, please outline the steps and orders such as sending qualification documents, registration with UCAS, applying for SAS. So that's from Alexandra. Emma, that information is all available on our website.
Yeah, all the information, including the link to apply to UCAS, is all available on the website. So I put the links into the chat there. So what you would do first is you would submit your application through UCAS. It would then come to ourselves. You would then get the email from ourselves asking you to upload your qualifications for us to review. And then if all went well, you were given an offer of a place, you accepted that offer of a place, you would then apply to SAS for your funding.
Thank you, Emma. Evan's asking a question about reading lists. So I'm not able to give any reading lists on this call, Evan. What I will say is that if you're successful and have a place on PGDE, way before the course starts, you're sent lots of information in terms of preparatory work around reading lists and handbooks and things. So if you're successful and joining us on the 20th of August, that will all come to you in due course. Ideen, I'm a teacher of history and religious studies in Kenyan secondary school. Can I apply for both? How much is total fee? So Ideen, you would be expected to apply in one subject, but if you're applying for both, you can, because it is a recognised dual for the GTC. Emma, do you have information on the website all about the fees?
Yep, so the fee information is available on the website under each of the subject pages, but for international students, the fee for this year is 19,850.
Thank you, Emma. And Tanish is asking a question about enrolled in the MSc Education Studies course. Could this have an effect or be useful during my application? Could my credits from this degree be favourable while applying for PGDE? Tanisha, I'm not sure the question you're asking, but you may be asking if the credits are transferable. I'm afraid, unfortunately, they're not, because you would need to go through the whole PGDE programme to gain your 120 credits to achieve your PGDE. But if you've been studying an MSc in Education Studies, then I would imagine that's something you would want to talk about in your application. And you might have an understanding of education that others may not have. So it's definitely something that I would bring in your application through your application process. But credit wise, you would need to achieve the full 120 for PGDE, sorry. Must an applicant of PGDE biology compulsorily possess an undergrad certificate in biology in order to be eligible for PGDE in biology? Well, Bright 040 is the name that I can see on screen. So to be able to be eligible to apply for PGDE biology, you have to have 80 credits that are biology related in your undergrad degree. What I would say to you is the strongest applicants and those who find it less challenging in terms of accessing the curriculum are those that have biology over a spread of both plant and animal biology. But we certainly could check your credentials in terms of the credits that you have. So if you have any question about PGD biology, then please send your transcript and the team will look at it. Often the transcripts come to me for checking, just for clarity. And if I can find biology at 80 credits worth on your credits, then that's something that I would suggest that you do. Send that along to the team. Abby, do you find students mainly commute or live in halls? If so, which halls? My commute would take around 2 hours each way and undecided as to which option would be best. So accommodation information, Emma, where's the best place to find that for Abby?
It's on the website, but I've got the link here, so I'm going to pop it into the chat for you.
Thank you.
Oh no, that's the wrong line.
We do have a number of students, that live in halls, Abby, and we have lots of different events for our students that live in our halls so that they build a little community coming onto the PGD programme. So if that's something you would want to hear more about, then Emma's popped the link into the chat there for you. Liam, I have an offer for an interview for PGD, but missed the opportunity in time. From admissions, it's been a couple of weeks since last opportunity to. Okay, Emma, could you take a note of Liam Riley's name, please? And it was interview for Modern Studies. Liam, I'll ask the recruitment team to get in contact with you if you've not been able to book in a time. It could be that you've missed that opportunity, but Emma and the team will be able to give you some more guidance around that.
If you've been in touch with the team already, then they'll have a note of your details. As long as you've been in touch with us to say why you've been unable to attend or register, that should be okay. But again, modern studies is a very popular subject, so we can't always guarantee another interview time. But again, I've taken a note of your name and we can follow up with you.
Thank you, Emma. Mark's got a good question. If you had to list the qualities of a good teacher, what would they be? As many as you like. Thanks, Mark. So what I would do, rather than not take my qualities of a good teacher, is, as Emma suggested, I would get onto the GTC website, because they tell you what the qualities of a good teacher are and they tell you what they're looking for. On the GCC website, if you plug in SPR or Standard for Provisional Registration, but SPR alone will take you there, it will give you what you're required to do as a student teacher. And that's something that I would look at before your application, as Emma suggested. I really strongly would advise that, because what makes a good teacher, if you put that into ChatGPT, you might get something quite different each time. But the GTC tell you what a good teacher is and what a good teacher looks like. And it's not just about subject or curriculum. I must stress that to you. There's an area of the SPR 1.1 being a teacher in Scotland, and that's one that I would focus on. And it talks in there about openness, honesty, integrity, the type of teachers that we're looking for in education. That's not just in Scottish education, but we want you to represent us across the world. So the list of the good qualities of a good teacher is a hard one to answer, but I would say go to the GTC website and you will be able to find the answer there quite easily. Okay, Marta, from what we said earlier, it looks like dual PGDE languages is listed now. For those who have already applied to Spanish and French, that still be available. Emma, have you got some information around that one?
Yeah, so it's still available. As long as you've got the dual Spanish and French, your application will still be under consideration for that. It was just to make anybody aware that if they were interested in Italian or German, we can't really accept single in those languages. So it needs to be the dual for those two languages. And if it's single Spanish, again, we're kind of limited to how many we can accept. But if you've got the two languages, and you've met all the other requirements to go along with languages, you should be absolutely fine. And again, interviews for languages are still ongoing at the moment.
Perfect, thank you, Emma. Someone's asking, they're anonymous, so I'm not sure who it is. Talk about more about assessment. So the assessment across the course, we've got ESPV as our written assessment, that's the essay, PLT is the poster, CNP is the presentations, supporting notes. On placement, the assessment is an observation of good practice. So we come and we watch you teach, and that's both for primary and for secondary. We would come in primary and observe you teaching a part of the day, and for secondary, we observe you teaching a lesson. Now, before that lesson, we would receive your lesson plan, we would consider that, we would drive in our car, we would come and see you. Excuse me, we would watch you teach. And then after that lesson, there's about a period's worth, about an hour's worth of post-lesson dialogue and discussion between you as the student, us as the tutor, and the school representative, usually the mentor or the class teacher. And in that, we would be filling and completing out a form, which is all related to areas of the SPR. So we go through each of the areas of the SPR and we try and collate, not just in the observation that we've made, but around the holistic experience of placement, we would collate some evidence around where you are at a particular point in meeting the requirements of the SPR. So you would have a visit in terms of assessment in your first placement, 1 and 2A and 1 and 2B after the spring break. So there's 3 opportunities for you to evidence where you're meeting the SPR. Okay. I have an interview this week. Do you have any advice you can give ahead of this? So, Kirsty, you want me to share the questions with you, no doubt, which I'm not going to. But what I would say to you is be enthusiastic, be passionate. When you respond to the questions, it's the same questions for primary and secondary, but slightly altered to suit the various sectors. And when you come to interview, it would be good if you had had a look at the GTC website. It would be good if you had engaged with Education Scotland. It would be good if you had had a look at Scottish Government. Obviously, education's devolved to Scottish Government. So have a look at the education areas of Scottish Government website. That doesn't mean you need to quote policy to us. That's not what I mean. But if you have a good sense of what's required of student teachers, and then link it to why that suits you. Why are you? Why should we choose you? Why do you think that you're going to be suited to the profession? And although majority of people come in and say they love working with children, and that is an absolute given, that's a must. There are other aspects to the interview that we're looking for you to be able to engage with us, to give us evidence that we can take you through the PGDE programme and that you're going to be suited to the profession. So think not just about subject knowledge, think not just about curriculum, but think about things like pastoral care and wellbeing and the big areas of education that are out with, particularly for secondary students, out with their curricular area that covers all. Learning for sustainability, digital learning, pastoral care, as I said, health and wellbeing, literacy, numeracy, all of these things. So think about how you're suited, Kirsty. How are you suited to the profession? Sell yourself to us in terms of the fact that you're perhaps a little bit knowledgeable about what the expectation would be of teachers. So that's probably, I've probably given you all the questions, but in a roundabout way there, Kirsty. So you should be well ahead. Okay, Christina, for international students outside of the Glasgow scholarship, are there other scholarships available outside of the EU? So yes, there are, Christina. Emma, is that easier to just go to the website for Christina to find these things out? Whereabouts?
Yeah, so if you're from the US, then the Glasgow 850 is the one that you would be eligible for. And again, I put the link into the chat. So that's the one that's available for yourself.
Thank you. Jennifer's asking, will we have access to a recording of this webinar? Yes, you will, because it's being recorded as we speak, Jennifer. So you'll get a link to that sent to you or have available for you. What are the next steps once you've accepted an offer for the course? Well, Michaela, that's a good question. What will happen fairly soon is that you will start to receive email and communication asking you to register for the course. Once you're registered and fully registered, you'll have access to My Place, you'll have access to handbooks, you'll have access to the timetable, you'll have access to reading lists. The first thing that you want to get hold of is our 20, 21st and 22nd of August induction days. So that information will all become available to anyone who accepts an offer. It first is available on the portal, and then once you're fully registered, a lot more information and communication will come your way, Michaela. So don't worry, you'll have accepted your offer, and that's great. And we're really looking forward to seeing you in August. But don't worry if you've not had anything at the moment. But by the end of this month and moving into April, all that information will start to arrive in your inbox. So keep an eye for that.
Can I just say, 'cause I think there's quite a few people, I recognise quite a lot of names on here that have already been made offers. So we're going to be taking part in the undergraduate offer holder day. So you should receive, if you've got an offer, you should receive an invite to come along to our offer holder days. And that just gives you an opportunity to come onto our campus, see our facilities. We're both going to be available on both of the days. There'll be a PGDE talk just to encourage you to try and come to Strathclyde as well. Finance will be there, careers will be there, accommodation, all student support services, health and well-being and disability will be there. So look out for an invite to come along to our in-person event on campus, and it would be lovely to see as many of you there as possible. But dates will be sent out to you once an offer has been made to you.
Okay. I was just scanning there to see if there's there's a couple of people who have been saying about being invited to interview. I'm just checking. I think it was actually the same person has posted twice about an art interview. So portfolio, you should bring your portfolio along with you. Because Wilma Eaton, who's our art specialist, our art tutor, she will be looking through your portfolio. So you should bring what you can to interview, or if other things are electronic, you should bring those too. So whatever format is easiest for you to bring.
I think for art and design, if it's the interview for art and design, there's instructions on the invite. So you need to email your you can email your presentation to Wilma prior to it, but you need to email her your portfolio as well over to it as well, so she can review that before your interview.
Perfect. There's someone, Linda, is struggling in terms of PGDE Home Economics. Emma, something to do with uploading a transcript qualifications. So they're not sure what.
Again, if you can just try and take a photo of it on your phone, and you can email it over to us if you're not able to upload it to the portal. I think it looks like it's maybe just too big to upload, but if you can try it in a different format, even just taking a picture of your qualifications on your phone and emailing them over to us. I'll put our email address into the chat box just now. And if you just can take a picture and email it over to us, that should hopefully be okay.
Okay. Lucy's asking about proof of residency in Spain. She's planning to go to Spain for 3 months to fill the requirement before the course starts. The team put a note in my file about it. Will I still be contacted for an interview? So she couldn't have the time, I think is what she's saying, Emma, provide proof of residency.
At the time, as long as you have it and you can provide evidence of it prior to the start of the program, then that's okay.
That wouldn't affect your offer, Lucy, but as Emma says, to
Offer,
you would have to have the proof by that point.
Yeah. if it would be your offer, if you were to be given an offer, it would be conditional on you providing evidence of your
Perfect.
residency.
Okay. Tanisha's asking a question regarding qualifications. I have my bachelor's in education in my home country, India. So how would that be equivalent with the Scottish standards? So Tanisha, our recruitment team are very experienced and skilled in this area. So they're able to look at transcripts and to convert any equivalents. So I would just send that to the recruitment team as requested. Okay.
Yeah, I've put our contact email into the chat box. So if you just send your qualifications over to us, we can check that out for you.
Now, there's an interesting question because the question is a PGDE is classed as undergraduate. If we're thinking of applying to halls to live near the university, would we apply for undergraduate halls and not postgraduate? Now, I don't know the answer to that question, Emma. Is there such a thing?
I think you would just contact accommodation directly and they can advise you. I wouldn't like to give them incorrect information. So their email address is on the website. So if you just drop accommodation and an email, they'll confirm that for you.
I've never asked that question before. I'll be interested. I think I'll call them too, Emma, and find out because I've never asked that one before. What's the assessment for modern languages like at interview? So it's language checks. Emma, do you want to give a wee bit background on that, please?
Yeah, so you'll get, if you're a native speaker, then you don't have to do the language checks. If you're not a native speaker, then you get language checks undertaken at interview. Similar format to all the other secondary interviews that are taking place, except you have the language check. Depending on the language, it'll take place at interview. If you are Spanish or Italian, we need to arrange a separate time for you to come back on to us and just do a wee 10-minute language check with a teacher in Spanish and Italian. But you would be given all that information prior to your interview.
Thanks, Emma. Olivia's asking, does every school in a local council receive a student for placement, or how do you choose which schools receive a student if there aren't enough? So those are two separate questions. Does every school and local authority or local council receive a student for placement? No, they don't. What happens is the local authority work with the ITEs, the initial teacher education. We work with local authorities in partnership, but we can't force, for want of a better word, anyone to take up a school placement or a student. So what happens is the local authorities reach out to their schools and to head teachers of schools to say how many students can you accommodate, and that's done way before PGDE starts. That information all goes into the centralised system, and then we know which schools are able to take students. Now, even at that point, we don't contact schools. The placement system does that for us, and then we're given a list of schools that are able to take students. So, for example, for biology, we have a number of schools that we can work with. Then our admin team work with all the postcodes for all of our biology students and then try and allocate the schools that have been provided. So it comes from nationally from local authority to head teacher and then to us. So do you choose which schools we receive as a student if there aren't enough? If there aren't enough schools, then we speak to local authorities to see is there any possibility. So schools give us these offers, but then we can go back to schools to see is there a possibility to take another student and so on. So we don't have, it's very, very rare. It does happen, but it's very, very rare for students not to go out to the first day of placement. But generally speaking, they go out within a few days. So they all get out to school. But if you're in somewhere that's quite remote and there aren't a lot of schools in your area, then it may be that it takes a bit longer to get you placed, but all students go out into school. I have an interview for Spanish. Will the language assessment be a conversation in the language or more of a test situation? It's a conversation in the language. Let's say it's not a test. So you'll be glad to hear that. So we can be conducting these language checks. Our language specialist, and she has a conversation with you, and in that way she's able to assess your language. So Kanisha's asking about the equivalent. I might ask the equivalent of the Scottish level of maths and English. Again, that's on our website, Emma, isn't it? In terms of national qualifications around maths and English. Yeah, that's all on there. Is art and course fill up fast, and how will I get the support? Person statement. Okay, so we've got someone anonymous who's asking about two questions. Does art and design course fill up fast? Art and design course is one that's sought after like many of our secondary subjects at the University of Strathclyde. I'm not sure what you mean by fill up fast. It's not first come, first served, if that's what you're asking. So Wilma Eaton, who's our art specialist, she'll conduct a number of interviews, more than our national target. And then from that, she'll decide the offers that come. Support in terms of dyslexia around the personal statement. So our team will be, Nick, who leads that team. Emma, is there a particular place that and it's difficult because it's someone anonymous, but is there support personal statement writing, Emma?
There's no, if you're a current student at Strathclyde,
yeah,
then yes, the career service will be able to support you. If you're a current student at another institute or a graduate from another institution, again, their career service should be available to help you. If you're neither, then the UCAS website, again, has really good guidance and advice for people to how to write your personal statement and support that way. But outside of that, I'm afraid we don't offer any further support if you're not either a graduate or a current student with ourselves. But there is good guidance out there on the UCAS website on how to write your personal statement.
Thanks, Emma. Ailish is asking again, I've applied to PG primary and still not heard back. Is it normal? Yes, it is, Ailish, because there's a high volume of PGD primary applications, a high volume of interviews as well. So it's normal to not hear back straight away because there's lots of different tutors involved, and they will be still conducting these interviews now. So if you just be patient and hold fire on that one. For other information, I've heard the course layout at other universities roughly 4 days a week, 9 to 5. For PGD, they'll syndicate 50, can be dedicated to other courses. Yeah, we do the Catholic Teaching Certificate here at the University of Strathclyde as well. So Daisy's asking that question. So the Catholic Teaching Certificate, you'll hear information about that on the first day of induction. And then we work closely in partnership, that's delivered by Glasgow University tutor team. But yes, we do offer that opportunity for the CTC, as we call it, the Catholic Teaching Certificate at the University of Strathclyde. I've already applied for primary teaching. When can I hear back? Well, I've answered that one already. So yeah, if you just be patient. David's asking about specific dates on campus. Conditional on offer. I would like to plan to stay with family during on campus. So on campus is, generally speaking, David, beginning on 20th of August, running through to the end of September. And then students are out on placement until the winter break. And then they're back on campus for the month of June into the beginning of February. And then they're back into schools February till the end of this week. And then they're back on campus for 2 weeks. And then after the spring break, they're back in school, and that runs them right through till May. So that gives you a rough idea, David, how the timetable works. In my offer, if my offer is conditional, will I still receive all the joining information? You will. You'll still receive all the joining information through the portal. And when you meet your offer and you're able to then fully register, then more information will follow, but you will have all the preparatory information required. Okay. When should we apply for PVG? You do not need to apply for PVG at the moment. So PVG is the certificate for the protection of vulnerable groups. Just for anyone who's not sure what PVG means, you do that as part of the course, and we guide you through that process, working with Disclosure Scotland University and more generally. So there's no need to apply for PVG before you come onto the course. What happens after receiving an offer if you're still currently finishing your degree? Well, Alex, I would imagine that offer will then be conditional based on you achieving your degree. So good luck in your exams is what I would say. Okay. If you receive an offer but have applied for multiple courses, is there any way of transferring this offer to your preferred first choice? The answer to that would be no. You would have to have had an offer in that first choice. I think that's what the person's meaning. So the answer to that would be no. Would there be a requirement for a chemistry interview to demonstrate practical abilities? I don't know if this is good news or bad news for you, Jack, but the answer to that is no. So we would be conducting an interview asking the key questions that all secondary applicants would be required to answer, but there's no practical abilities test, if you like. But it is something that we do, not the test, but working in terms of the practical work through the PGDE programme. As a scientist myself, Jack, we have BGE classes. All our labs are all over in the Royal College, so all the practical will be addressed in the PGDE programme itself, so there's no test. When schools have October holidays, for example, do we go into university or do we have a week to plan for lessons for following weeks? All the October holidays are different for an anonymous person or across the various local authorities. If the school, if you're on placement and the school is absent, so there's a holiday, then you wouldn't be expected to go into placement. If the school is closed to pupils but open, for example, in service to staff, then you would be expected to go. So you'll hear more about that when you come on the course and look at the full timetable. How many hours a week are we having classes on campus? I'm working to pay for living costs. Yeah. Lucy, it's difficult to answer because I'm not sure if you're primary or secondary, and the timetable is different across primary and secondary. Primary, you would be looking at all areas of the curriculum that you're covering, so there are certain C&P days across the week. For secondary, it's only one day of the week, but there are other classes for secondary, so it's a bit difficult to answer. What I would say is we state in our handbook the expectation is that students would be able to engage in theory Monday to Friday 9 to 5 because it is a face-to-face course. That said, you would be able to see spaces on the timetable when you receive it where perhaps you would be able to do some work between Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I appreciate the cost of living and the requirements that people and our students have coming onto the programme. As much as possible, Lucy, I would suggest you try and get as much money behind you as possible, which would give you more opportunity to maybe engage off campus in terms of preparatory work and so on. That said, we completely understand, and many of our students hold part-time jobs going through PGDE. So it's something that you would be able to perhaps accommodate with the timetable once you see it. Okay. Emma, I'm just keeping a wee eye on our time there. So
Yes, I think there's just two last questions, and then I think
okay,
that for today.
have a wee look.
I think Alexa was asking, is there any need for a first aid certificate when doing things like placements? The one I have for work runs out before the course starts, and I'm wondering whether it'd be worth getting it renewed.
There's no requirement, Alexa. When I went to the old Jordan Hill about 100 years ago to do teacher training, they offered it as part of the programme. There's no requirement for you to have a first aid certificate going into school because your class teacher will be working with, and then holistically the school will be responsible for first aid for the pupils. So there'll be no requirement for you to update that unless you wanted to do that personally, but there'll be no requirement for you to have that renewed. And then the last question, can you take part in the Catholic certificate even if you're non-Catholic? That's something that you can hear about in the induction sessions when Roisin Call from the Glasgow University team comes to talk about the CTC. But if you wanted to get more information, then you can go onto the Glasgow University website, put in CTC, and you'll see all the answers for your questions there. Okay, thanks.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you everyone for taking part today. I hope you all found it useful. Congratulations to those of you that have already got an offer, or are you still waiting? Please be patient with us. We will be in touch with you as soon as possible. Just for some subjects, it's just we've got a high volume of applications and we can only interview so many people at one time. So keep checking your email, check your junk email as well. Sometimes the invites go into your junk folder as well. So just keep a lookout. And for those of you that do have offers, we will be in touch shortly with an invite to the offer holder days to get you onto campus to have a look around and see our facilities. For the rest of you that haven't applied yet, then please submit your application as soon as possible to us. All the information is on the website, but please do get in touch with our team if you've got any further questions. We have monthly online information sessions as well. So if you've got further questions, then you can register for one of those as well. And again, the links are all on the website as well. So we will say thank you very much, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I hope the sun is out wherever you are. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll hopefully all see you all in August for the start of the programme.
Here's hoping.